Welcome to the Gallery Podcast. Good afternoon. I'm Ian Grant, gallerist and curator of Umoja Fine Arts. Today I have with me our guest, Marcel Stewart from here in Detroit. And today I'd like you to know about my mentor before we get into the business. One of my mentors was the great Annie Lee. And now today, because Annie passed away in 2014. Bless her. Bless you, Annie. I know you're smiling on us. Paul Goodnight, the great Paul Goodnight from Boston. And wow, what an individual to be mentored by, to learn the business, to be known around the country in this art business, in the art world that we all love, in the art world that preserves our business. Welcome to the House of Original. Welcome to the house of archival pigment prints. Welcome to the house of custom framing. And today we're going to talk to Marcel a little bit about his story. This particular podcast is about how you develop and make a premier artist. Marcel has been with Umoja Fine Arts since 2020, around 3 years now. And he has really grown as an artist. We'll talk a little bit about his price points, his developments, his techniques, his style. But before we do that, Marcel, can you tell us a little bit about your story as an artist?
Well, yes, thanks for asking. I'm first and foremost from Detroit, Michigan. And I started off my artistry as a very young child, just, kind of playing around and, drawing characters. But from there on, I really wanted to get more intrigued about art. And growing up in high school, I did a lot of realistic art, a lot of figurative art, whether that was portraitures, still lifes, drawing fruit. I even did a lot of collages, a lot of contour line drawings. My biggest thing that I was intrigued with was composition within my paintings and my drawings as well. I battled with a lot of different mediums, and from there on out, I developed a love for expressing myself, and from expressing myself came with a love of abstract art. I learned a lot about abstract art from studying European artists and why they did abstract art, and sort of the neglect of abstract art and the minimalization of it. So once I understood the expressionism of abstract art and why some choose to do it, is pretty much the reason why I kind of dove straight in and chose to do that as opposed to figurative artwork and more so representational artwork. I still had a love for composition and putting, something in the middle and something of the as a focal point within my pieces. But, growing as an artist, I think it was a challenge to not have something to look at and kind of go off the top of my head and create something.
So Marcel, we know today, right, that African-American art is one of the fastest growing segment of the entire art world. But some of the challenges that we face today again is that we don't control the total spectrum. And when I say the total spectrum, I'm gonna give the bigger picture. Like, we don't control the museums. We might have only 3% of art in the museums, okay? When you talk about the auction houses, we don't control the auction houses. But yet, we continue to grow this business, build this business, and we have to do in the art world what you do in real estate. In real estate, we talk about location, location, location. But in the art world, we talk about education, education, education. So that's why we're here today, is to educate you about Marcel and to educate you about the art world. So Marcel, you started with Umoja Fine Arts in 2020.
Yes.
And I remember when you first came aboard, your price range was anywhere from $500 to $1,000. Now today, your price range is anywhere from $2,000 to $25,000. So let's talk about how we built that, how we developed your price range to be on that level. And I'll get into the dollar figures because I'm a marketer. And marketing is about supply and demand. That's what marketing is about. What's the difference between a $10 singer and a $10,000 singer? It's basically marketing, because you could have one singer that could sing better than another singer, but if they're marketed correctly, you will be a $10,000 singer. And that's what Umoja Fine Arts is known for. We're known to make hits. And this is a hit that we have right in front of us. So we're going to let Marcel tell you a little bit about his painting style, how he painted back in 2020, how he changed that over the course of the past 3 years, and how he's painting today.
Yeah, so just like how you said, the price points have started off from anywhere from like $500, not even to $1,000 when I first came into Umoja. And the way that I was painting really wasn't characterized to an extent. I had one particular style that I practiced, which you might remember was the swoop splash. And I had maybe one geometric shape within my paintings or so, and maybe a color palette of maybe 4 or 5 different colors. But, you know, being around different artists, I think helped me to really realize my own potential, and also being close to the gallery and being able to see different styles of art, being able to witness different collectors come in and critique my art and say what they liked, what maybe they disliked, and being able to take that back into the studio. I think constantly painting and graduating to another level of expertise helped me out. So when I first started with Umoja, you would see paintings from me anywhere from the size of maybe 14 by 18, which is pretty small, all the way up to maybe a 24 by 36. Now you'll see paintings the size of this one behind me.
And what would you say this size is right here? Because this is where you're getting to with your average painting as you go after the corporate world. As Umoja Fine Arts develop our business now with the corporate worlds, with the hotels. So we know the demand is there for the larger paintings.
Yes.
So what size would you say this particular
piece is 4 feet in height and about 7 feet in width. And it allows me to really grasp a sense of what I'm trying to express on a large scale. And now, after painting with Umoja and, you know, having expertise in what I'm doing with expressionism, I'm able to paint within 30 different layers. Whereas when I first started with Umoja, I was only painting about 12 to 15 different layers of painting in acrylic, which is the medium that I use. But I truly do believe now, as I continuously paint until the painting is finished, it allows the viewer to really grasp a sense of depth within the paintings. And they can see exactly what I'm trying to pull out of each painting, and they can also grasp that same emotion.
Yes, and that's so excellent. So Marcel, 6 months after you were with Umoja Fine Arts, and I want to take this back a little bit because this is so important. As you indicated, you painted with a style that everybody knew and collected from you that was called the swoop splash. And so when you came aboard with Umoja Fine Arts, we had 4 projects for you, pretty much, for the National Jazz Festival here in Detroit. So basically, I sat down and I talked to you and I said, Marcel, the first painting can be the swoop splash. We don't have a problem with that. But after there, we need you to diversify on that style and where you're going to take yourself and where we see you going. And fortunately, you had some help from the Father above. And that term that we call it is painting from the belly. So Marcel called me, and I'm going to let him tell the story a little bit about an incident that happened downtown. And this kind of helped him to really, really develop his style, to really go deep into the belly and bring the artwork from from inside of him outside and put it on the canvas. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that once he tells you the story of what happened in downtown during COVID, during Floyd. Matter of fact, I just got back from Houston.
Yeah.
I was there for the game.
Right.
And so I got a chance to go to where he grew up, his neighborhood, and to see his mural on the wall and everything like that. So that's kind of interesting that happened during your time period. I just experienced that last week. So tell us a little bit about that, what happened
Well,
there.
just like how you said, it was during a period where they had a lot of the race riots going on downtown Detroit. And, I was down there and I got into an encounter with the police to sum it all up. And, I was down there and I ended up being detained for trying to help a young lady that really didn't speak English. And, from that point, with me being detained, I was wrongly detained. My brother, he was also wrongly detained with me, and we were essentially locked up for about 9 hours all night on the curb behind jail fences. But, with that, as a young artist, not really knowing what to paint, especially coming from a figurative and representational artist, I always painted something that I seen in an image already. Always drew something that was already existed. But as an abstract artist, I didn't know where to pull things from. And after encountering that, and not only encountering it, but also being able to talk to a mentor, I think that's what allowed me to say, okay, this is what you need to use, so to speak. This is the fuel to the fire. So once you kind of gave me those words of encouragement, as opposed to, I've had other people, say, okay, to hell with them, or, forget the police, or whatever the case may be. But you said use it as fuel to your own fire. And I developed a piece titled Mystical Harmony. And that piece is showcased an abstract horn, kind of showcasing a sense of sound, a sense of excitement. And also it had geometric shapes in it that showcased windows of sunshine that kind of lit up for me, because I always knew that I was an artist inside that it wasn't a cage, but I felt encaged.
Right.
And I knew I would get out, and I knew I had a story to tell afterwards. I just didn't know how that story would be told. And, thankfully I have the opportunity to, really tell it through canvas. But since then, I've been able to not only channel my emotions, but also channel my thoughts in a way to express those on canvas now. And I think it's all due to that experience.
And with Marcel as a premier artist, I'm going to go into the story just a little bit. He called me up and he told me what happened. He was detained down there. He was put basically, I grew up and we called it the paddy wagon, but the van or whatever. And, pretty much handcuffed with the twist and the whole bit. And I was like, Marcel, what do you want me to do about it? He said, basically, I don't want you to do anything, but I just want to tell you my experience and what happened to me. And I just smiled and I said, now it's time. It's time. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, it's time for you to come deep from the belly. I want you to paint from the experience of you being in that paddy wagon for over 15 hours, having to stand up for something that you didn't do, trying to protect someone. And this was basically the building in the beginning of him changing his format and giving me my first abstract piece without a soup splash. So we put the soup splash on the back burner for 2.5 years. And we eventually went back to it because that's his trademark. Your trademark in this business is so important, but you want to move away from it to develop other things. So when you bring that trademark back, it is so strong. And so once Marcel started to develop the other things that we wanted to do, because our goal was to intertwine and intermingle the nationally acclaimed artists with the local artists. Umoja Fine Arts has been in business since 1996. We've been dealing with the internationally acclaimed artists from around the country. So within his first show, we were able to have him work with the great Paul Goodnight and get some experience there. We're also able to have him work with Larry Poncho Brown out of Maryland. Now let's not forget the Detroit market. We also had him work with Grammy Award-winning artist Marcus Glenn. And I'm going to ask you, Marcel, to tell the audience a little bit about those experiences and being able to paint now at this level, the thought process and what they taught you. And when we brought Larry Poncho Brown here, I want you to talk about that a little bit when you get the opportunity, because you, Abe Ilo, and Larry Poncho Brown stayed up all night and had a painting session and created painting by the next morning for the show. And you guys stayed up all night. So I could imagine that must have been some camaraderie.
Yeah.
That must have been an experience that you'll never forget in your life. Can you touch on that a little bit,
Yeah,
please?
so that experience was phenomenal. Just being able to, you know, not only have artist friends, but then also being able to understand how these artists think and what these artists battle with, you know, whether it's insomnia. A lot of artists deal with insomnia, just not being able to sleep because there's so many thoughts going on in their head. But also a lot of artists paint differently. Like, I don't usually use a lot of water, you know, when I'm painting. But seeing other artists, they may use colored pencils and they may not even use paintbrushes. But the expertise and the talks and, you know, just setting paintbrushes down and saying, okay, I'm taking a break and I just want to see what you guys are doing, or let me see what you're working on. And, you know, in the hotel room painting and not really concerned about, okay, maybe we did get a little paint drips on the countertop, or maybe we are just using who would have ever thought you'd be using one of the little hotel cups that you use for water to dip a paintbrush in. You know, I could have never imagined that. I could have never imagined doing a small painting on a hotel bed. So it's things like that really will never leave my memory. And also being able to work with someone as great as, you know, Larry Poncho Brown. I think he's a phenomenal artist, and what he's done in his career is absolutely phenomenal. He's been in the art world for over 40 years, and for him to be able to not only shadow what he's done in the art world, but also being able to look over my shoulder as I was painting that day and say, I like what you're doing, but I think you should do this, or go a little further, or what do you, just asking me, what do I see? And he even asked me a question of how many paintings do I feel like I do in a year? So some of the questions that these artists ask, just like how you mentioned Paul Goodnight, some of these questions that these artists ask and some of the statements that they mention will really have you as a young artist intrigued about your own craft. So some of the things that Paul Goodnight had mentioned to me is that all art pretty much starts off as abstract. And that's something that I never really thought about because all of the thoughts that we have and before we create, they're abstractions. So to build something out of that is the first part of creation. When you're painting, when you're drawing, and when you really have that pure sense of imagination. So it's great. It's been great having these artists at arm's reach, you know, and I'm very thankful to have a gallery that can put these artists at arm's reach and put the artwork around me to visualize and you know, have it inspired what I'm doing. And just like how you mentioned, the Grammy Award winning artist Marcus Glenn, he's allowed me to challenge myself with different mediums. You know, I've never worked with resin. I've never worked with three-dimensional aspects. So being able to challenge myself and even go further outside of the bounds, it's sort of like me taking a leap off of the edge of the earth and going into another dimension, as I would like to call it. And that allowed me to get tons of views of artwork in different states, in different parts of the nation. So I'm beyond thankful for having those peers, those mentors, and beyond thankful for the gallery for putting me around that type of energy, because it's unmatched. You know what I mean? You can't go outside. You can't go into a particular art group and say, this is what I need. I need to be around people that are better than me. I need to be around artists that are better than me, but not only better than me, but can critique my style and understand that I'm a sponge to it and I'm willing to listen. Every artist that I think I've been around has been able to tell me that, you know, I'm not necessarily a jealous artist, and I'm willing to take that constructive criticism and apply it. And I think that's what really allows me not only to be their friend, but also to continuously get better.
Great, great. Well, let's talk about giving back to the community, because always giving back to the community is so important. And we have so many young artists out here that's coming up today. So what kind of advice would you like to give an emerging artist?
Man, the first piece of advice I would like to give to any emerging artist is continuously paint. Like, never stop doing what you do. When I first started painting, my paintings weren't that beautiful, you know. Even some of my family members didn't think they were beautiful. But, you know, coming from that, if you continuously do what you like to do, no matter what it is, you know, you're going to get better. And the practice, it makes whatever you want it to be perfect. I never imagined myself being an abstract artist. I always imagined myself being an artist, but like I said, more so a figurative artist. But as I practiced the abstract, as I studied it and got around peers, mentors, you develop camaraderie. You go out and you go get you a network of friends. You go join a social group. The next piece of advice that I would like to give any emerging artist is pay close attention to your financials. Understand that anyone purchasing your artwork, anyone investing in your artwork is investing in you and your craft, and it's up to you as an individual artist to elevate that. I would not be creating paintings this large. I would not be in a gallery as such if I didn't do what I was supposed to do with the previous collectors and what they've given me. Another great piece of advice is understand as an emerging artist that whoever is supporting you are the people that are backing you. And you definitely have to take that and wear it on your shoulder, because that is your core group, you know, and those are the people that are probably going to ride with you all the way down to the end, because they have that investment. You know, you have a peace of mind. A ton of other people have a peace of mind, but they look at that piece, and they don't only look at that piece, but they look at me as a young artist and they say, okay, in 30 years, not only is this piece going to be somewhere, but that young man is going to be somewhere, and that's what they look for in the future.
Now, when you say young artist, Marcel, when I first met you, you were only 29. Today, you're only 32. And your work is already selling from 2,000 all the way up to 25,000. So when you make investments into the marketplace, and we're going to talk a little bit about building generational wealth. You want to look at a young artist that's coming up, where their price point's going to be, and how can they continue to grow. Or you want to look at an older artist that's already developed themselves, and you say, well, they might have limited time here on this earth, so therefore I want to invest in them. So I would say with Marcel, we're going to go with the first area, where you're going to look at him as a young artist at 32, with his work selling already from 2,000 to 25,000, and imagine where it's going to go as we continue to build him. In 2023, in the last 6 months, we had Marcel in over 35 publications in 6 months. This included the TV stations 2, 4, 7, Fox, on and on and on. So that was so great for him to be able to get this exposure, to feel comfortable, to be able to meet all these reporters, to be seen throughout the country, throughout the world. And next we'll talk about how we take him on the road. Once I let him answer that question, how he feels there, I want him to tell me how he felt like going to Art Basel in Miami, that they call the Big Kahuna. How do you feel now traveling to Maryland? How do you feel now traveling to New Jersey? How do you feel this summer when I went to Martha Vineyard and took your work to the world, where some of our people are, some of our most wealthiest individuals? So you have 2 questions before you, Marcel.
Well, just to imagine, you know, my work traveling, I think that's one of the biggest accomplishments that I've had, because, you know, I grew up as a very urbanized individual, and not really seeing much of the state, let alone the nation. So having my work travel is one big thing for me as a young artist, and having other people see my work, because I don't only paint for me. One of the biggest things that I strive for as a young artist and as an abstract artist is to make my work universally sound, and having other people of different races, different cultures, different ethnicities understand my work as it's their own language. So having other people appreciate it in these different states, I think, is very, very large for me, you know, emotionally and spiritually. And then for the media and the publications, you know, first and foremost, I definitely like to, you know, give thanks to the Almighty for allowing me those opportunities and allowing me to handle myself professionally within those settings. And then I like to give a big, huge thanks to Umoja for those opportunities as well.
Thank you.
But nonetheless, you know, when I look back at those things, it's things like that you can really look at, and especially as a young artist, you can look at and say, not only are these paintings and what you create permanent and, you know, long-standing, but those clippings, those magazines, those articles, those television episodes, those are things that I can give back to my children, to give them something to smile at and be proud of, and really give back to my family, let alone give them a painting to cherish for a lifetime. So I want everybody to know that's what art is. Art isn't just an image, you know, it's something that can be forever, you know?
So let me ask you, Marcel, so when you're working on a painting like this or another painting, how do you keep yourself from getting bored? You know, because I know we have a rule here, and I know you follow that rule, that you have to paint every day. So if you're not physically painting, you're at least putting gesso down, you're back in, or you're sketching, you're putting your sketchbooks together. And yes, I would love one of your sketchbooks. It's very important to collect sketchbooks, by the way, because those sketchbooks are what makes these paintings. So for a lot of the artists that I collect, I always try to get their sketchbooks so that I'll be able to. I try, you're right. I try to get their sketchbooks so I'll be able to tell that life story of how they went from process to process, sketching things out before they brought it on this level. They're not just taking it out of their mind and just automatically just putting it on canvas. I want you to understand that. They're sketching first, and they have these books. So try to get those sketchbooks. It's very difficult to get. Go ahead, Marcel.
No, but about that, you know, just like how Ian stated, as he kind of reeled me into the gallery and brought me around different artists, you ask them what's their practices, you know, and understanding what that practice is, you start to embark on it. You start to embark on a particular journey and understand that it is a marathon. So me personally, I paint every day. I not only paint every day, but I embark on something new every day and try to challenge myself with that every day. So not only laying out a painting, but also just like how you said, laying gesso, creating texture, developing layers of texture, laying out 3 or 4 different canvases at a time and starting 3 or 4 different or even 5 different paintings at once to kind of channel my thoughts.
5 different paintings at once?
Yes.
Sometimes you paint on 5 different paintings at once?
Yes.
Is that incredible or what?
Yes.
This is the making of a star. This is how stars paint.
Yes. And I think it's necessary because, like I said, some artists, they do have insomnia. So it's nights where it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I'm painting. It's nights where I come home from out of town and it's 4 or 5 in the morning and I go down in the studio and I paint. But I think that's the beauty of it because your mind never truly rests. And if you can have an outlet to push that out on, then that's the true blessing of it all, you know? But how do you not get bored, I think, is the most challenging thing of it all, because after creating so many images, you find yourself at a standstill. But that's when you procreate, you know, you start to level that up. And I think that's the stage that I'm at now, is where I've created a certain intrigue of texture. I can create a certain level of intrigue of color, pattern, movement. So to that extent, I like to layer that and go a little bit deeper into that. You know, what people see in my paintings, I want to give them more of what they enjoy.
That's great. That's great. So, Marcel, tell me, at age 32, and I know things change over time, but from what you could see right now and the vision that the Almighty have given you, where do you think you would like to be? Where are you trying to go, and how are you trying to do this?
I'm glad that you asked me that. My ultimate goal in life and in my art life is to showcase my artwork worldwide. I would like to have my artwork in Europe. Ultimately, that's the end goal. I want people in Europe, not only Europeans, but also African Americans and all of other descents, to see my artwork in Europe showcased on a very, very large worldwide scale. So that way, it can speak universally. From my own descent, from a small neighborhood in Detroit, showcasing abstract artwork, expressionism from my own heart.
That is great. Thank you so much. And I just want to say, we're going to make Marcel's life a little easier here at Umoja Fine Arts because this year we're bringing on the team 5 internationally acclaimed artists. And the launch will start February 2024. So Marcel, these individuals, your camaraderies, your new partners in the paint business will only make life easier for you and open up a lot of doors. So thank you for this opportunity today, and continue painting.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man.